Do we have somewhat of a running back controversy brewing in Indianapolis? This is the Fantasy Sports Boss. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button. Going through Crisis Monday, wanted to talk about one of the very impressive stories during Fantasy Football Week 6, and that was Deion Jackson, the undrafted running back from the football powerhouse that is Duke. Not talking about the basketball program, talking about the football program. Jackson absolutely shined. He was one of the biggest stories of Week 6 as he rushed 12 times for 42 yards and a touchdown, but then added 10 catches on 10 targets for an additional 79 yards before he left with a quad injury. Jackson, now in his second year in the league, certainly putting himself on the map, putting himself on the fantasy football map, and at least is generating a conversation in terms of what the setup could be like when Jonathan Taylor comes back from his ankle injury. Taylor has now missed 2 games. It was expected he was going to play in week six, but he sat out. And, one thing that we can always fall back on, too, is going back to the preseason in the summer. Colts head coach Frank Reich had noted that he wanted to decrease the workload on Taylor and maybe find him a suitable complement. Now, we all assumed it would be Nyheim Hines, but Nyheim Hines, has been given multiple opportunities over the years, and what he really is just J.D. McKissick. He is a pass receiving back. He has little to no chops as a runner, so he can't be that guy. Enter in Jackson, who, in 2020 only got into 6 games. 2021 got into 9 games, averaged only 3.4 a carry, wasn't impressive. And even going back to his days at Duke, he wasn't an overly explosive back. And what was also interesting is that he wasn't much of a pass receiver in college as well. But he comes into this season with Taylor out, takes advantage of the opportunity. Now, he is still averaging only 3.7 per carry, which isn't very impressive, but he's catching a lot of footballs. And this was not, again, part of his repertoire in college. He's got 14 receptions in 6 games for 108 yards. He's showing nice burst, nice cutting ability in the open field when he gets the ball in his hands, whether it's a run or a pass. We all know about the running struggles for the Colts this season. Jackson, while his average is not great, Jonathan Taylor's is not far from great as well, because the Colts offensive line is just not opening up the quality of holes that they did last season and just not getting a push. So what I will say, though, is that Jackson, now he has the quad injury. We got to see how he responds to that this week. But if he does play this week and Taylor returns, maybe he starts to carve out a niche for himself, maybe a 75-25 split with Taylor, whereas previously it was really just almost 100% Jonathan Taylor. I think Jackson has done enough to generate that conversation. Whether it might seem blasphemous, the number 1 pick in fantasy football leagues is now going to have to share carries, but this is what Reich wanted all along. He wanted to spell Taylor and not give him such a heavy workload. And I will say this about Jonathan Taylor. I mentioned this the other day. The workload was insane last year for Jonathan Taylor. And we have seen many times over the years in fantasy football, when a running back comes off a massive workload season, no matter what the age is, the very next season they tend to bounce. Now, that term bounce, it's like a horse racing term. Anybody that's familiar with horse racing knows that if a horse runs a career best time, their next race out, they will bounce because of the energy and the effort that they needed to expend for that number. Same thing applies to a running back. If they have a massive workload one season, then the next season, it stands to reason they'll get hurt and the average will come down. Taylor's already been hurt and the average is way down. Coincidence? I don't think so. So again, I think Jackson could carve a role here. He should be picked up if he's available, in leagues this week, because there's still no guarantee Taylor will return. But this bears watching. All right, hit the subscribe, hit the notification button. More videos on the way later. Going to do the live stream probably around 6 o'clock, so make sure you tune in for that one. We will talk then.